all right, I'm putting myself on blast because I've done this. But if you're making a character that has one of the following, then I think you need to put that character back in the oven. It needs a little more time. Either A, that either they have a voice in their head that only they can hear, that they can split themselves into two so that they can talk to each other, or they have a wild shift personality that happens on the dot. And no, I'm not referring to bipolar or any other sort of actual medical condition. This is totally different than what I'm experiencing. Literally anything where the player gets to roleplay with themselves, I am guilty of this. But if you're doing that, stop it. Because above table, I've learned and changed, and so can you. Welcome. Well, yeah, great advice. Welcome, players, DMs, TTRPG enthusiasts to Above Table. Oh, I also forgot to mention, audience, you just leveled up. Congratulations. Don't forget to pick your ASI or feat, because this is episode 4.
Let's go! Most exciting!
Yeah, everyone's always excited at level 4. You gotta always pick those stats increase. Yes, this is a little show where we talk about random subjects in roleplay. Doesn't always have to be D&D. We've talked about numerous times about how we love Kids on Bikes, Blades in the Dark, and we just learned that someone's playing Pathfinder. A lot
I'm
of numbers.
Scared.
Yeah.
So many numbers. I can't do math. Help me.
Role-playing with ourselves. I made characters that had that little trait, and I now hate it. With a fiery passion. I've had a few people try to join games where I had this one person who wanted to join a game of mine, a campaign, and they pulled really deep out of the like pop culture reference pocket, and they were like, have you ever seen the Jackie Chan Adventures, the cartoon that was on like WB Fox or whatever it was? And I was like, yeah, I have some slight memory. And they were like, there's a special power that splits you into good and evil. I want to have that power. And I was like, okay, am I role-playing the evil or the good? And he goes, no, I'll do both. And I went, there, that's it. That's what you're going to do. Yeah, okay, understand what you're doing. You are trying to role-play with yourself. And
which specific part do you dislike about that? I'm curious.
That
my
the other
thought
group
is
was staring at the wall while they're doing.
No,
I have my own thoughts on it, but I'm curious what like pokes the fire in you, Mike.
D&D, from my point of view, is that it's a team game. It's a multiplayer game. And when you have the capability or powers to roleplay with yourself, because there are 2 individuals, then you're no longer roleplaying with the team. You can roleplay with the DM, because that is another person who's also considered part of the team, because it's a collaborative storytelling game. But if you're just sitting there going, what should I do? Voice number 2, we should do this. Okay, maybe I shouldn't. And now I'm like, we're just sitting here watching you play with yourself.
Yeah, that's very fair.
That's my crux on it.
That's super
you
fair.
said you have a thought on it. What's your thought?
Well, initially when you were describing the different archetypes, I'm like, I've had players do that, but then you elaborated. I've had players do that where I am one of the other voices. And in large part that comes out of like, at least with the players I've had and with the characters I've played, of like, man, I can't handle that kind of like splitting in my head of like, I have to be 2 people or 2 voices. I can barely keep up with one. So like, I just have to have like the DM or someone else handling one of them. But like, yeah, no, like even as a DM with multiple NPCs in a room, I don't like talking to myself. Help.
Oh my, I hate that. That's also another aspect of this whole subject of role-playing with yourself, is even as a DM, having like a group of people, like imagine you're having like a council meeting and the players are like listening in or interacting. They now have to listen to the DM roleplay with themselves for 5 minutes, which is very weird. Have we all done that? I'm not sure. Amber, have you done that?
I've done 2 of these tropes. One was a Jekyll and Hyde, but you were the other voice. And then I forgot, the warlock that was a Kalishtar. You were the other voice too in her head. So I didn't have to roleplay 2 people, and I liked it better that way because I thought that was fucking weird.
Yeah. Nick, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I think you lose a lot of what what you're getting out of role playing, because so much of like actual role playing at the table is a conversation. And I think, for most people, for the typical person, it is difficult or maybe impossible to have like two distinct perspectives at the same time in conversation with one another. I think you're embodying one or the other. Like one is your primary. So I think that like, even if it's not like always the DM, I think just like having somebody else to talk the thing out, and you take this other point of view. Even if I was Jekyll and Hyde, sometimes I'd be Jekyll, sometimes I'd be Hyde, maybe. But another person would always be the other thing. I think makes for more productive conversations. You're more surprised. The other person can get more into the other perspective. Being a DM, you sometimes end up in those scenes where you're talking to yourself, and it's painful. The podcast that I like a lot, the actual play, Friends at the Table, they almost always have like, if the character is well known, they'll say like, hey, could somebody play one of these people? Like, you just take this character in this scene so that it's not just me talking. Part of that is an audio medium, right? If you're recording something, it sucks extra to just have one person talking to themselves. But I do think that like, I think that's part of why the best advice for like making NPCs or whatever is like, everybody should have a clear want. What's their one motivation? Like, that could just be one word. But then, like, somebody could pick it up. It's like, all right, this person cares about money. But this person cares about status. Play this person just in this conversation. Keep that in mind. Because otherwise, I'm trying to keep two, like, contrasting things in mind. And it's not what role-playing is good for, I think.
Yeah, those are usually the scenes where, like, I have to... Unless I'm caught off guard, I'll try to, like, write out their dialogue.
Yeah, summarize, yeah.
Yeah, I just have to be able to read it at that point, because I am really bad at holding two different contrasting viewpoints and then going back and forth with myself in a manner that feels natural. Like, the voice switching back and forth, I would need a pause if I wanted to keep it consistent.
That was like the most apparent, like if anyone were ever to watch it and see you guys at Yuka's party, there were so many bodies there that I was like, you guys go talk to someone. I'm not going to have 12 people surround you and be like, do you want to be part of this conversation? I'm like, no, you are now the subject of whatever the conversation is. And you are just getting hit with just numerous points, but directed towards you guys. So I think there was a point where like Arrow walked up to like this group of 3 people and each of them had something to say directed to you. So that way I wasn't role-playing with myself. I was like, I think this is good. I think this is bad. What do you think? I think this is neutral. I don't know how to... And it's like, now I can put my hands up and you can interact whomever you wish. I don't have to do that. Because role-playing with yourself is weird.
Yeah, I think going back to your, like, the character idea specific, that, like, we've talked before about, like, you want to be the edgy loner, or some people just like, I'm playing a crazy character or whatever, and roll your eyes a little bit for whatever reason, right? But you like in most games, you wouldn't let somebody play 2 characters in the party. And so what do we mean when we say you get to play one character? And I think that like, if you like, I have a split personality or an imaginary friend that I talk to and I'm also going to play as, like, I think a lot of that crosses the line. It can violate that social contract a little bit of like, we are one character each. Like, you can play a complex character that has a lot of stuff going on in their head. I'd be fine with somebody like summarizing a conversation if they wanted to play somebody that was like a plural system or something, or they felt like they were representing me, another race of beings that's like a million voices in the head. Right? But you just summarize that, right? Call out a couple of them, but like, don't have the whole conversation, because that just doesn't make good at the table experiences for anybody else.
Yeah, one thing I will say for the, like, we were talking about the Jekyll-Hyde split or like something of that nature. This is like slightly related, but I found really fun to play as that didn't require me to like play 2 characters. Yeah. was having an ability set essentially where my alignment would switch. So I was playing like air genasi, and so I set like the north wind, south wind, east and west. Each are assigned to a different alignment, and depending on the moment, okay, roll a d4. You have to pick like now you're chaotic good or now you're neutral evil for this decision or this moment, which allowed for the same kind of wiggle room of like, oh, I might be good, I might be evil, without having to be like, I'm actually just a different character.
Yeah. The way you're not role-playing with yourself, you're just like, now I'm just role-playing differently depending on whatever I rolled. We have that a lot at our table, too, where, like, I think Steve is the one that sort of sticks into mind where he's like, I have to make a decision. Hold on. Okay, then I'm going to do this. Then he'll roll, then he'll make a decision that way. What was that, Ember?
No, I was going to say for the Harvest House, it wasn't really, like, playing two characters, even though I made her, like, Jekyll and Hyde. I remember us talking about it before, and you were like, it was kind of based on what is happening in the moment, like gambling. It was like, oh, she'd switch because she'd probably pickpocket this person.
It's a fun trope. I mean, I'll be honest, I made characters who are like that, where they have dual minds or like they have conflicting personalities. You know, it's fun to make those characters.
But it wasn't really role played out. It was more of like her habits. So like, it was like if she was in sound mind, she did sound things. If she wasn't,
you have
she
full
did
health and you're
bad
feeling
things.
great. And then if you're feeling stressed and you have half health, you're like, I have to switch up right now.
Yeah, I think this is bringing to mind. I mentioned it in the chat a while ago, but that game, A Nocturne, which was one of the earliest like spins on the Blades in the Dark rule set, and it's like weird sci-fi. And so a major thing in that, I haven't played it yet, but just reading through the rule book, is it's like built into the system that you can create backups of yourself. So if your body dies, your mind can go to this backup, right? That sci-fi trope. But a common thing that happens for like various complications is the backups stick around, right? Or there's two copies of you or whatever, right? Or multiple, like even more than that. Or for various sci-fi or like, you know, cloning reasons, doppelganger reasons, right? There can be multiple physical versions of a character in games. And I think it does become important to be like, which one is the player character? Which one is our player character viewpoint character, right? I think if you're just like a set of things or whatever, if you're not identifiable as one thing, I think it can kind of dilute who you are. At a certain point, it's like, okay, you're describing the world like a DM, which is totally fine. But you're describing like 5 or 6 different people having a debate. You're doing your own mini world building in the head of this character or whatever, which is fine, but it's a little bit different than what we maybe signed up for.
I feel like that's Gravity Falls when like Dipper gets that weird, like he keeps scanning himself and then he has to write number.
Oh, yeah, clones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just like, that feels like the, like, oh shit, which copy am I?
There is and I might be showing too much of my hand, but there is a one shot I've been in the works making, and it's based off of Prey 2, the unreleased sequel that got so close to being released. For those who need context, Prey was a very old Xbox game that you were a Native American who got abducted into an alien spacecraft, and you fought aliens with alien tech and spirit magic, or something along that lines. It was really well made. And then they made a sequel, and then it got 99% done and never finished. And what this concept is that you play as someone who, in the game, you are a bounty hunter. You were abducted from Earth, and now you're an alien, like you're in alien world, and you're a bounty hunter. And every time your character dies, like Borderlands, you get come out of a vat and you come back, and you're like, oh, damn it, I died. This sucks. But the problem is that when you think about it from a player's perspective, when Mario dies, you just start from the beginning. In this game, it thinks, okay, we're going to keep that to a concept. And so you go through the entire game. You find a way to get home to Earth. You live a long life. You marry. You have a kid. And you live until you're 90 years old. you die, and then you get reborn back into the alien world where you were like revatted. And that is the dev's way of going, and now you can explore Game Plus.
From a human standpoint, that sounds fucking awful.
It
like,
sounds
if I'm
awful.
dead,
That's horrendous.
But it was,
let me be.
But game development's standing. It's a brilliant way to explain like why in these open worlds you can go back to it. Like you finished the story, why would you go back? And it's like, oh, because you get reborn, and it's already set in the world. So I would love to make a level 1 shot where you guys just keep on dying, and every time you like, there's a pit. There's like a pit of some like an endless pit, and you have to keep on dying to fill it with your clone bodies until finally it makes a bridge where you can walk on your own bodies across. I was like, I would love to run that one day.
Sounds like our little goblin one shot, because you said you can be an asshole, and if you die, you die, and we just went full force.
Mm-hmm. How did we get in the subject? Anyways,
You said pray.
Pray. I don't know how you got
And
it.
reliving.
Yeah.
Making
Great,
copies
I
of
love
yourself.
that. It's a great concept.
It's in the works. But yeah, I've had multiple people who attempt to do that and get very sly with it. Like, I have a living mind in my mind who talks to me. Like, okay, great. I get to play. Who is this person? And then they shut me down and say, no, I want to play it. And I'm like, in my Friday crew, I do have someone who is a Kalashtar who does have a secondary mind, but I get to voice them. And so I get to play all that. And so it makes a lot more interesting, story-wise. Because now I can hold secrets.
I thought it was more fun when we did it, because I was like, I didn't really want to have control of that person. It didn't make sense for me to have control of it, because it's like a person that's shunted into your head when you're born, and it's like, I don't fucking ask for that. But, here we But it was more fun that way.
Speaking of having to balance all these voices, because even as all of us who have played DMs, it's a lot of voices and personalities and goals to balance in our heads. I would consider all of us to be experienced role players. So now that we're going to switch a little bit of the subject, how do you tell a story to a group of people who are experienced? They've been through the tropes. They've seen the twists and turns. How do you keep them engaged?
You go for the emotional jugular, so I mean...
I have one move.
It's how can I make you cry each campaign?
Honestly, though, that's like not a bad move. I think that's tend to be like how I try to write things. Like, you have like the central plot or whatever, or at least how I write it, and then I have to wait to fill it in because I'm waiting for all my players. And once I get their backstories, I'm like, okay, now I get to do this main plot, and then I have to tie in all of their stuff. And along the way, I'm just going to have a whole line of tears up to the final boss. And that's exactly what I want. And it usually keeps them pretty occupied because it's like, oh, this is directly my backstory. Or this is my friend's backstory. I want to help them.
Nick, thank you for not making me cry, though, Meg. You did give tough decisions, but like I didn't have to cry.
Yeah, I think the theme of Thomag was more of the because it was all lifted from Batman basically, or the core of it, but it was the like what compromises are okay to make for good or evil. And then that ends up at the end where you guys, as level 20 characters, we stop playing D&D and we're playing Kingdom because you guys are making decisions that are going to shape this society. And it's still about like, what compromises will you make, and do you take this thing that is maybe dangerous, but it gives you power or whatever. And I think like, to me, it's like, I honestly, I don't have any concerns about running a thing for experienced players. I think there's so many positives in terms of just like knowing the rules and understanding how to be in a system, and like when it's your turn and when the spotlight's on you and all this other stuff. I guess the obstacle would be like, they've seen it all or whatever. It's hard to surprise them, but it's also like, how many books have you read in your life? You think like, I'm done. I don't need to read any books because I'm an experienced reader. This isn't going to surprise me. It's like, there's always more stories. or even a similar story told differently because different people are involved, right? I think there's always gonna just a different group of four players at a table is gonna make something completely different in the way that they react. But also, like, yeah, going back to Thomag, a lot of the stuff we put on the table was just like they're just versions of like moral quandaries or philosophical questions that have been, you know, people have talked about for like thousands of years, and we're just exploring them at the table in this game, right? If you have a prisoner, do you kill the prisoner, right? Like, you know, balancing yeah, I mean, that's we're, you know, millions, billions of people in real life and in hypothetical situations have faced that issue. And it's interesting to see how a given set of players and characters grapple with that kind of thing, right? And so I think, like, yeah, if people are worried about, oh, you're not going to be able to surprise them or whatever, I think you're thinking about it the wrong way. And I think also maybe you may be pre-planning too much. I think you have to, like, let the story evolve from the personalities and the characters at the table and go with, like, what they're showing you they're interested in.
You gave me, like, I still talk about it. You still gave me the biggest surprise with Kara, because I made, to clue Titan in, I made this backstory where my character had, like, an arranged marriage because she was a princess. He was a major asshole and decided to poison all of her people so they would die, and he could claim, like, full power over everything. And she was not having it. So in my head, I went, this guy's an asshole. There's no way in hell he loves her. And then lovely Nick over here was like, no, this is how he loves her. And I was like, that is fucked up.
Yeah, it was, you know, we had the recurring theme of, like, this powerful form of magic that was inherently dangerous and corrupting. But its people would reach out to it if they felt they had no other way to get what they wanted or needed, right? So it was, like, you know, people that were poor or were hungry or were dealing with, like, sick loved ones or whatever. Like, they were but also, like, somebody who felt like, well, the person who I love and I'll do anything for and I've decided is the person that I'm going to marry doesn't love me back. Well, maybe I look at these, like, black pages and see what they have to say about it, and maybe I can make everything work out, right? Like, yeah.
That was a trip. I was like, no fucking way. And then he tried to kill her, so, you know, yeah.
Love is complicated.
Yeah, a little yandere moment.
A little bit, yeah. I mean, we had that in Ventir. We had a yandere, was it the knife owner? What is it, the cookware person?
Yeah.
But
I'll be drinking the Kool-Aid she had.
It's an interesting new experience because I've run Mosted and obviously Campaign 0, which is, you know, Surf's Blade, which or Nomad, which was not streamed, but it is part of the world.
They're all different sets, though. Nomad, we went super green with it. We didn't really talk to each other about our characters. Mosted, we did. And for some reason, we all decided to make a bunch of fucking family, have 5 million kids, and then Mike traumatized us, and we all went collectively, at least us three, before you two agreed to join. We're like, nobody's gonna have fucking nothing.
Yeah, that's a thing, is that everyone in Ventir, besides Legati, besides Legati or Arrow, are not actually people of Ventir. They are from another place. And for you guys, you are so well removed from general society that it's like, if I were going to pull on strings, you'd really have to look for it. You know?
Just like make your life a little difficult.
Yeah. But no, what I was going to say is, like, I ran Mosted, and it's the very atypical, you guys are unknowns trying to do good and trying to be heroes. And I knew when you guys were jumping in, I was like, all right, we have 5 very experienced players, and this is sort of the conundrum came in. I was like, how do I provide them an experience they probably have never had before? And it's very interesting to see how everyone's wheels turn when the concept of the story that I'm running is the law doesn't necessarily trust you. Like, you're doing good, You're absolutely being the heroes, but you're not getting the recognition, and you're almost vilified for it. And that is sort of the raw concept, at least the first beginning of Mosta, or not, of Ventir, is like you're doing the great deeds, but you're not getting recognition. And how do you react to that? And it's interesting to see everyone's reaction to it, because we have I think everyone at the table has been like, fuck these people, fuck this place, this place fucking sucks. And then something like a hook brings you in, like for I recently pulled on Diva's hook really hard, and then I pulled on Phoenix's hook. I was like, I'm gonna pull these really hard, and then there's like some small tugs to Legati of turns to like the mountains, and then there's like I'm trying to hook on Morse, but man, he's really avoiding everything. I'm like, God, I'm gotta get you one way.
Throw the anchor.
I don't think he knows what he wants yet about the character. So yeah, I think that. But yeah, I think Ventir is a good example with the, like, when we found out about this secret group and what they were doing with the forward guard and everything. Like, we interpreted it, and maybe we interpreted it too much through the prism of Marvel's Civil War. But that's such a big cultural touchstone. That's like immediately like, okay, should we have to register or not? And that comes with all this real world baggage. But it's also like these classic questions which people, intelligent, experienced people can fall on either side of particular issues. And it's interesting to put us into context of like, how would these characters respond to that? Knowing that like, we were in jail like 2 weeks ago for something that was total bullshit and everything else. Like, exploring our motivations and how we would interpret the world, I think is, I think that's cool. And you could run similar questions over and over again, and it doesn't necessarily get stale just because somebody's experienced. I also think it's worth flagging, like, the mechanics of your character. And I think you see it like often, like Mike, when in Thomag, you start off just playing a pretty straightforward fighter, but because that campaign went for so long, your character got more and more complicated and weirder as you're like trying to branch out. And then like, but you started the classic, I'm a champion fighter, right? The simplest, the straightforward, like this is the basic
D&D
one,
character ever. I was like the most basic bare bones person.
And that's good for a lot of people to start with something relatively simple. But also, like, I haven't played in a lot of campaigns, but I have a lot of experience with Dungeons and Dragons. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to do a wizard, and we're going to do a transmutation subclass, which is like regarded as the worst one. And I'm not going to take magic missile, and I'm not going to take fireball. And I have like a long list of stuff I'm not going to do. If I was going to be a warlock, never do Eldritch Blast. Like, I think most experienced players would want to. I don't want to play with the same parts of the game over and over again when there's so many different options out there. So I think if you're an experienced player and you keep making the same kind of character, I mean, if you're having fun, I guess that's okay. But I wouldn't approach the game like
heavily encouraged. Yeah, I think that's a great point. And I do the same sort of motions when I do like start playing and I do some odd one shot. I'm like, I'm going to play the weirdest fucking character I can. Because I've never got to play a gnome who was a barbarian. A small little guy who's really angry. And you get to be weird.
I like I can't think of what it is.
Like,
what's Fern again?
Fern, a satyr?
Yeah, I like your satyr.
I like my satyr too. He's when I became a dad, I was like, I'm gonna make a dad character because now it fits really well. And so I made a dad satyr. And the joke is that satyrs are known stereotypically
5 million children.
Well, no, they were known stereotypically to be like musicians or artists or some sort of like talent. And I was like, sucks at it. He does do one good thing is that they're also known for breeding, and he has a lot of kids. He has like 12 kids. He's like, I have a lot of kids at home. So
yeah, I think that's a really good point too, that when you became a dad, you made a dad character.
Yeah.
I think people are living their lives as they're becoming experienced role players, and I think they're going to want to explore different kind of themes, or they'll approach different themes differently. I think an example is From Thomag, we had the Black Winter where the city was like locked down and nobody could leave their houses, and there was like this plague in the streets, which I wrote pre-COVID, and we like started pre-COVID, and then COVID happened, and we're continuing it after.
Yeah.
And I think that, like, okay, I'm an experienced player, but I'm going to respond very different to these tropes based on what I've gone through in my life. That's role playing versus other kinds of like playing a board game over and over and over again. It is informed by who you are as a real person, and we're never staying the same. So there's going to be changing experiences, you know?
So Titan, does this mean that you are exploring your pirate side, or?
Look, I don't know if I'm sure I've mentioned it at some point because I can't stop yapping specifically about pirates. In college, like a last big paper I did, 40-page paper on pirates. And it took me 4 semesters to do.
Okay.
I have a wealth of knowledge on pirates, and I love them, and I love the concept. And the answer is yes, because I approach the theme differently every time, like we were talking about. I have now made 3.5 what I would call pirates, and they are all very... He wants to be one. He's not.
Okay. All right. Yeah,
halfway through the campaign, we had a thing with piracy, and he's like, "This is great. We should come back to this." But like Nick was talking about, like approaching a theme differently, just like for the hell of it, of like, "Hey, I've done this before. How can I make it a little bit different, or how can I stick really hard to a theme?" Like with Legati being a transmutation wizard. In every moment that Legati is like on screen, I'm like, that is a transmutation wizard. There's no moment where I doubt what his like subclass is, and I kind of like really love that of like sticking to I am doing transmutation things. Period.
Again, that's what comes back to what I said earlier about like designing good NPCs, but like 1 or 2 clear wants and values. And keeping those in mind. Like Legati, you know, if he's a real person, there's a bunch of different things he wants and cares about or whatever, and those come out in different ways. But a lot of times, if I'm faced with a situation, it's like, okay, I like things to be different. I like change. I have a weird perspective on things. Just keeping that in mind and letting that inform what comes out, I think, you know, that can be a fun spin. So playing a pirate that's about I'm greedy versus a pirate that's like I'm about adventure. Those are very different pirates, right? Like, there's very different motivations for similar kinds of characters, even, and I think that can make it a different experience.
So, what kind of pirate is Arrow?
He is actually what I would call the most classic. Of like the 3 solid ones I had like Astral Monk. So he was more tempered. He had recently realized, like, oh, everything is chaos and bad, and I want to help the innocent. Everyone else can kick rocks, but the innocent specifically, I'm looking out for them. I'm trying to keep my peace. The other, Chaos Gremlin. I want fame. I want to have the highest bounty. I want to be looked at by every government official. Like, you will not forget my name.
He would have, whatever this person would have fit so, he would revel in the fact that they got jailed and that
Yeah, so total chaos gremlin, and I was like, okay, so we have the 2 sides of that coin. Arrow is I'm trying to walk a line of like reasonable, regular dude, like just with life experiences, and also the angle I'm going at is specifically like the spooky side. He is a little bit weird. He likes some creepy things. Again, he's reasonable. Some things are simply not my business. But going more towards the eerie, hence the name Arrow with 2 E's. Like the word eerie.
I feel like, yeah, although the wild chaotic gremlin would have been fun, it wouldn't have given me the opportunity to explore a little bit like ghost pirate, you know, kind of like the angle for it, and getting really spooky with it, because that's always fun.
Yeah, I like Arrow's often approaching, like, piracy seems like a job, right? It was something they have done for a living, right? It's his job, and he still like approaches a lot of things that way, right? There's this eerie side, and I've seen stuff and I've done stuff, but like what am I doing today to pay the bills, and like the practical approach. Like I know about rope, I know about types of wood or whatever, like because that was my job to work on a ship, right? I think that's a cool, it's not the swashbuckling Errol Flynn pirate in the same way. It's like in real life, most people on ships, they were doing that because it was their job, and maybe they didn't have a ton of options, right? And like they got really good at these ship things, and they saw a lot of amazing things, but they were doing it because it was work.
Yeah, he is my typical. I'm a dude. This was my occupation.
Sometimes you need a guy. Sometimes you need the straight man of the group, which I honestly do believe that Arrow is the straight man of the group who like looks at everything and going, "This is wild." You realize that, right? This is stupid. You're all dumb. And of course, we have Legati giving out like straight logistical facts and like nibbling everything out. And you're more emotional to it. It's just like, I don't need to hear that. This is just dumb. You're all being dumb. He's being dumb. She's being dumb. Can we
that
stop?
Last session we recorded, that last bit got him.
It came out. Yeah,
he did. He was like, guys, please.
Can we
I
stop?
like how Nick in the chat was like, "You mean the one that punched your girlfriend?" And then, oh, fine.
If that's the part where it's like Legati being there is going to very much change how he like interacts with this scene.
Just talking through the facts of these characters, right? It's like, maybe at first, okay, I don't want to be involved, but also it's like, but do you care about this person? And in what way do you care about this person that just got punched, right?
Yeah.
Speaking of the person
she
who got
did not
punched,
think about that. She was like, "Let's go."
Speaking of the person who got punched, we got like kind of the general perspective of like Legati's mindset of like always having to think like things are always changing. And then we have now sort of a brilliant mindset of like Arrow being like, I'm a regular guy. I dabble in the creepy, but I just got to keep things straight. Amber, how do you describe Phoenix? Like, what is the thing you always go back to?
Probably the awkwardness mixed with odds, because I wasn't planning to put her subclass in there so hard, but it made sense from like what she's been through. So her subclass like weighs odds of like, if I run this fast, I can get away from that thing. Like I know it for a fact. If I go this way, it's too short. This way is too long. Like, and that made sense from where she comes from. So, but sometimes she ignores that, or she has been ignoring it, specifically in this group.
Why? Okay. It's weird. My perspective on Phoenix is that a lot of her training, like obviously you've talked about this character Obadiah, who is an NPC you knew. It almost feels like training was your life, and that's kind of really dictating like a mentality.
No, that's fair. That was her focus. Like, that was her escape from reality. If you have it, it's like, that's the thing I know I can do. I'm really good at it, so I'm going to put all my effort into it. And behind the scenes, we were talking about Wakia and the difference, and I was like, I think Phoenix is more focused. She's more wise. Whereas in like Wakia wants to punch. It's like, I'm looking at how you're punching me so I can hit you harder. So I was like, she's hyper squirrel and Phoenix is a little bit tapered.
And maybe one day we'll get Stephen Temple to sort of break down theirs.
Yeah.
I agree with you, Nick, a little bit that it's kind of hard to track down like Morse sometimes. Where I'm like, I feel like there's a little bit of Rolly that comes out, which is a campaign 1
yes,
character.
I can vouch for this.
It
We did this last
seeps in
campaign.
a little bit.
He cares about necromancers. That much is clear, right?
Yes.
And he's trying not to be a stereotypical paladin, and he's looking for, with the book or whatever, like a guide to maybe that's it. It's like a guide to how to be a hero or how to be a paladin or walk the worthy path or whatever. But he only has like the 1 page so far. So he'd like he can read that a bunch, but it doesn't say that much, right?
Yeah.
He has more to fill out.
I threw in the I was like, maybe this may drag him in when I was like, your mother has a thing against devils or fiends.
I kind of understood that a little bit though, because it's like, in reality, if you never met this person and like they don't really mean anything to you, and you at least think you never really meant anything to them, it's like, why do I care?
That's a good point. Yeah.
But yes, I
It's hooks.
understood.
It's just hooks.
I
That's all it is at the very end of the day.
We were talking about playing with experienced players. That would be the one that actually they give me the hardest time with. Where it's like, I'm gonna throw you a hook, and I think it's an interesting hook. I'm like, I have so much planned for it, and they're like, anyway,
Yeah.
away from that. That's none of my business. And I'm like, oh, what was I thinking? Planning all this on the side.
Get rid of these 10 pages of.
Yeah,
Oh my
that,
God.
busy work.
There's so much stuff where I'm like, lore that I can't use. I'll save it for later.
I mean, it might come up later. Sometimes, I mean, you did this with Rolly. Sometimes you just have to force shit on him,
Yeah.
and then he's like, oh.
But I mean, in terms of hooks that can't be avoided, grab Diva. You know, having a Celestial just go, you smell like us. That's all I had to say. Like,
You were so happy afterwards.
because at the end, all I heard was Temple going, "What the fuck does that mean? What the fuck?" And I go, "That's all I wanted. That's all I wanted. I just wanted you to say that."
She was trying to get out of you the day before when we went to that Krampus thing. She was like, so, about this fight. And I was like, girl, he ain't going to tell you
Don't worry
shit.
about it. You can solve it in game. Ask questions.
And she looks at me. I was like, I don't know nothing either.
Well, as per usual, we usually end these things with a D&D horror story, but I've rechecked how we do these things, and I wanted to choose something where it had less relationships in it, because
Thank
that was
you.
always pretty awkward.
Me and Nick
But
were like,
instead, I have one that is labeled Weirdly Empty One Shot. And I only chose one because it's a little long, and we can go through the emotion ride here. Because it really speaks to me when it comes to like creating games and thinking if I have enough or I'm planning enough, or going into some random person's game and realizing that it wasn't the experience I wanted. And I think we've all had that where it's like, I can't wait to play this game that you're running.
I like being in my comfort bubble. You've made me extend out of my comfort bubble, and it's like 50-50 chance. It's like,
It's a very, yeah.
and then it's like, oh.
So it starts with the following. So I have always loved making characters, and I have liked D&D since I was 8. However, chances for me to play were very, very rare, and I've only been in one campaign before this particular story takes place. By the way, my friends and I would play, and it was tons of fun in that campaign, but gradually it all died. We graduated, and a couple of us moved away. I'm really happy, and I'm going to interject a lot. This was sort of like introspective, that Thomag didn't end when,
Rona hit,
and we moved away from the company that we were all working at. I'm like, I'm really happy it went on from how long it did. Nothing, it didn't stop.
Yeah.
I was one of the people who moved away, and as a result, I had no friends out where I was now living, nor any social system. That sucks. I'm sorry for that. Yeah. You like something and now you can't. It's been like that for months, and I remember missing our D&D sessions every day. Recently, this is what got me. Recently, my mom sent me a post about a D&D meetup at a local cafe. I wish my parental figures were like, hey, we know what you enjoy. Let me give you some tips.
Our parents are ancient, Michael. Yours doesn't know what it is, and my dad goes, satanic panic, cool. Like, he's on board for it.
I mean, I was really into games, and never did my mom go, hey, there's a gaming club. Would love to have been part of that. So great on this person, the fact they have a mom who's very, at least like, here, why don't you go play? And also, representation. Fuck yeah. It was advertised as being a queer meetup. And I was honestly very excited because I had a chance to meet many new people. Or I haven't had a chance to meet much new people, as much less queer folk, since moving out here. Hell yeah. Go find your people. Go find your crowd. Sucks that this thing is called Weirdly Empty One Shot.
Yeah, you know it's not going to go well.
It's like you're going on the roller coaster and you're like, all right, everything's working out. We're having fun.
I want to know why it's
and
like
then
weirdly empty though, because it's like, was there supposed to be a bunch of people and then there wasn't, or like they all left?
Are you guessing how the story's gonna go? That's fair.
I think it's going to be emotionally empty. I think the person is looking for emotional connection, but yeah.
And what perfect timing! I just redesigned a character that I had conceptualized for a campaign that never took off. So the night before the session, I rolled up a character sheet for her. She's a tiefling rogue with a noble background, and I'm very excited to play her as she was a lot different than the last character I played. I love playing different characters. We just talked about how playing the weirdest characters you can. Keep doing that. I even have a drawing of her that I made recently. Oh no.
I was like, this
Knowing
is
that the
already
fall's
filled
coming.
with too much hope.
I feel like it's just piling on like all the
false
great
hope.
stuff. You've got like an ice cream cone with 3 scoops and you're just like, it's never going to fall.
Pull a Lilo and Stitch, that guy that always is.
Yeah. Exactly.
And I was super excited to possibly show people the art that I made at the meet. So, cut to the session. I arrive immediately and notice that everyone's at least 2 or 3 years older than me, and I'm 18 for reference. I didn't get this line. That seems about right. You would expect to meet a little bit older people when it comes to D&D.
I feel like there'd be a range.
Yeah.
2 to 3 years, like 18 isn't too bad. Like even a lot of my players came from the same high school as me, and they're like 2 grades lower.
Everybody's college age. That's not unusual at all.
Yeah.
Also, maybe because they were so used to their friend group being like probably in the same grade.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
like that little bubble, and now it's like everyone's different. It's like, yeah, welcome to college.
Yeah, welcome.
You're not going to just get people who graduated from high school. You're going to get people who are coming back to college and they're adults. And that's fine. But I'm very shy, and I'm also already quite nervous. And someone asked if I'm here for D&D, and I take out a sheet and a seat, since I was. And I was under the impression that it'd be one of those one-shots of sorts. And I was sort of right. To come to find out that it's a series of one-shots that were taking place in a homebrew world, that this meetup has been spending 2 years developing.
Oh.
That could, I'm gonna play devil's advocate. That could work. You can definitely say like, there's a king and people know who the king is, but you don't necessarily have to know.
That's true. You're just kind of jumping in.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking. Like the worry for me is like, at least me as a player, dog, let me in. I want to know what I'm getting into.
Yeah. So long as it's treated that I am new, like I'm new to the country or city, then I can just treat everyone new. I don't care.
Yeah.
Let's see here. I'm a bit confused as this was advertised to be great for new players with no mention of any homebrew stuff. Spoiler, mostly anything that lasts for longer than a year is probably homebrew. The person explaining the logistics of the world seemed to be a bit annoyed that they had to explain everything. And me being already intimidated, I didn't press the subject. So they probably came in a little bit more blind than we were hoping for. The person next to me looks at my character sheet and points out being level 1 character would be pretty difficult for me, as everyone's already level 3 or 8. Not through 8, or 8.
3 or 8.
That's a
I guess
gap.
like I feel is this like
cut
kind of
8
where,
in
like
half?
they keep coming back and like getting new players along the way?
Oh, like recycling. They died and nothing.
No, like
Well, no, like if they are meeting up at this cafe and they had like one group who went up to level 8 and then suddenly like, oh, new people come in. Well, I guess they start at 1 and now they're 3.
did
like,
anyone play any League games?
Mm-mm.
No. I hear, isn't it like that where like you have to get it signed off by someone from who's like official from like a League play, and then they're like, great, you go for it.
The basic rule, they make it pretty easy. It's like the core source book plus 1, other book. So like you can have stuff from Tasha's, or you can have stuff from like one of like Morden Canaan's Guide or whatever, but just one to keep it simple. And then you're supposed to be a certain level. And then, at the end of each one, you get a certain amount of experience. And so if you did have characters you were taking through League play, you would keep track of that over time. I don't know if that's like super necessary or if a lot of people actually did that or whatever. But the format is set up to do that.
Continuing on, I was nervous. I know I'm swallowing so much at this point because I don't know what to add if I change her to be level 3. And I don't have my book on me. But apparently, that didn't matter. I was told that I was not allowed to play my character. This caused me to panic because they just told me at this point that tieflings do not exist in this world that they developed. So I couldn't use my character since she is one. And then they left me alone. That hurts. It's like you can't play. Go sit over there.
I feel like you need to invite this person to a one shot and be like, come play.
I know.
Honestly, that's one of those, like, if you're sitting at the table watching this happen, what do you do? Because I feel like the answer should be, bro, we'll figure it out. No, don't go sit by yourself.
The DM should be like, well, the rules say you can't play a tiefling, but maybe you can just play a different race, or
yeah, exactly. Like, you could maybe just be someone who looks like a tiefling.
Yeah.
Like a dragonborn or something.
And you just have the horns.
Yeah.
Let's see here. And then they left me alone, and I'm starting to panic, as I mentioned before. I didn't bring my book or a spare character sheet to roll up a new one, and thankfully one of the people here, one of the newbies, comes over and gives me a pre-rolled character. That sucks. Which is still cool, but I was disappointed that I couldn't use my own character, and they made art.
Yeah.
I feel like that should have been a disclaimer, though, of like, hey, this world's pre-built. This is what exists in it. This is what's not. Like, bring your characters with this information.
Yeah. Like, normally, if I were to make, like, an ad for, like, a one-shot or a series of them in the same world, the key things I think I would put on there is homebrew world. If there are any excluded races specifically, like no tieflings, you should put no tieflings, or like no specific class or something. And then also the level.
Yeah.
There's a lot of missing information here.
Yeah, that's so tough.
Dear Mom, don't just send me the flyer. Inquire.
Or dear flyer maker, please add more information.
Yeah. I don't know why I'm putting all the blame on the mom.
Yeah, don't blame the mom, man. She didn't know.
I would call it, why did you send me here? It's not fun. So the actual session starts, so she has to use the pre-rolled character. And there were a lot of people, so we were split into groups. I was in a group with only other new players, plus some more experienced players here and there just to help the newbies out. The DM gives us a preface of how the world is developed and gives us a brief introduction for each of our characters, basically name, class, and race, as well as a few vague descriptions. Then we're immediately launched into a quest to kill a beast in the woods. No time to explore the town that we just docked in, and the DM character just approaches us the second we dock and tells us to go kill the beast that's in the woods. Okay, strange, but since this is a campaign, I guess so, more of a one-shot, I assumed it was okay. And so things would pick up soon in terms of role-playing combat soon enough. So we have some... All right, it's a one-shot too. I understand the idea of getting the story ahead. That's nothing bad so far. No.
Judging.
We're judging. I'm holding judgment. It's here.
I'm like, I got a pin in it. I'm gonna judge that later, but I want to see how the rest of that goes.
I won't go super into specific details, but this one-shot felt so empty. There was barely any room for roleplay, one of my favorite parts of D&D. Yeah, people love roleplay. And because the DM basically asked us what we wanted to do and then described it for us, it was super simple. Most of the roleplay was us deciding and then describing. No roles associated. So there's like, you win.
It seems like we're drifting away from D&D. What's happening?
It gets worse.
There is no I win. There is just a I don't die.
Yeah. We're just telling a story here without dice. There is no chance. The most roleplay that one of us got was that a character was struggling to wake up and we just tried to wake him up. That was the max of our roleplay. The group also decided to examine the owlbear, the beast in the woods, and I swear the DM literally had nothing planned. I asked if it was nocturnal, since it only surfaced at night, expecting to roll maybe a check, or an insight, or a nature, or survival. And I was just informed, probably is. I don't really think of that. Actually, I don't even know if the DM planned for there to be an owlbear in the first place. They described it as a bear with a super smell.
Sorry. Go ahead.
It was a relevant part of the initial description given. does that mean?
Cocaine bear?
Cocaine bear. And it had wings. Oh no, the players asked if it had wings, and the DM just agreed. It's not an owlbear.
Build your own beast.
Build your own beast. I'm calling it this.
It's got legs of a duck. It's got a really good nose.
Yeah, that sounds like an owlbear.
Wings.
The group decided that we wanted to try to befriend the owlbear. Hell yeah. We don't
That's
have
a
to
good
combat.
fucking idea.
But we needed to trap it before we could. So we built a trap for it. It works. We just asked for it, and it works. No rolls, no things. We just say we put a trap down, and the bear gets trapped. I hate this already. The DM then describes the beast as a bear on steroids. It is Cocaine Bear.
We just made Cocaine Bear! But with wings? Yeah, sure.
Here's where it gets good. Describes it as a bear on steroids, acts super feral.
So he's got rabies.
Like it's possessed.
Oh, shit.
It was a metaphor, obviously, but then the cleric of the party didn't pick up on that and asked if it can exorcise it.
Please do. I want to see what happens.
Instead of correcting them, the DM just said, sure. Had them roll concentration 3 times. It's like when you click your heels 3 times, something happens. And now we have to fight the demon that just escaped the owlbear. I'm actually for that. That's actually
I was gonna say that
really
part
fun.
of it's more interesting, but rough beginnings.
I like it, were it not for the fact that whoever is DMing this is so evidently flying by the seat of their pants.
Yeah.
You're building this adventure for me in real time.
Demon bear.
If they came out and said we're gonna have some wild times because I have barely anything planned. If they preference that and they got weird like this, I'd be like, fuck yeah, this is the best table ever.
Yeah, no, expecting like a structured D&D game though, and walking into this, I would be so confused.
Yeah. So now we have to fight the demon that just escaped the owlbear. And I thought, oh, well, I guess if roleplay isn't heavy here, maybe it's a really good combat experience. Nope. We rolled initiative, and then the DM just decided amongst ourselves when to go. The demon went last. Even when one person rolled a nat 1. We all killed it before it even could inflict any damage on us. That was the only battle in the session.
That sounds like they just didn't have, they couldn't even think of stats on the fly, so they were like, just kill it. So I don't have to.
After that, the DM congratulated us, said, great job on finishing the one shot, and everyone just got leveled up to level 8.
You know, this story makes me feel better about my DMing capabilities.
Honestly, yeah. Big ego boost right here.
Just absorbing this. This is good. But yeah, so this was a long story, but it felt strange. And again, I'm new to D&D. Even I am fairly certain that this feels fairly blank, and they didn't really have much planned. People were nice. Ended nice. That was great. That's the end of the story. Yeah.
Maybe pick some of those people and try again. different attempt. Maybe a little more planning in this one.
I have been honest with everyone here at this table that there are some weeks where I'm like, I had no time to prep. I prepped a little bit, and I've been very honest with everyone. Like, today's gonna be weird. Today's gonna be very weird.
You always have some kind of outline though, and generally that's when we're the most chaos monkeys, is when you have less prep, and it ends up being one of the most fun sessions because we're chaos gremlins.
That is, I live for those days where I'm like, I didn't have anything prepped, or I had a very little prepped, and I go, all right, we're gonna figure these things out. I don't know how it's gonna work, but we'll do it.
Sometimes you just have to take the reins, though. That's how you guys did it in Ripples and Waves, because none of y'all could make that fucking save to save your life. And I was like, I'm just gonna reel y'all back real quick.
From this particular story, now I have to ask everyone here: has anyone ever ran a session with nothing planned?
I'd be terrified.
I've never done it. Doing blades makes me feel like I'm much more confident in being able to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Because blades encourages you to have very little prep because so much of what happens is complications that grow organically out of the situation. I think from the story we just heard, I think the bear is actually possessed is good. I think that was cool. That's the way to do it. I think, that's just a bad session. Maybe not a great DM. It's a bummer because like if you have this homebrew world, that should be the strength. Maybe you don't need to do a lot of prep because you know the world and you know what's going to happen naturally or whatever.
I've been working on Duna for 6 years.
Yeah, I have done a lot of solo role playing using like systems made for that, and for those things you don't prep anything, and it's a lot of discovering what happens based on dice rolls, like asking yes or no questions and rolling for the results, or rolling on oracle tables and getting prompt words, and taking it and running it from there. Like, I think it would be a little bit of a sluggish experience to do that with a group of people. So I do like having some of that thought out ahead of time. But I do think that, like, I don't think that was an example of lack of prep or whatever. I think that's the person talking, the person writing that post, putting maybe too much of their hopes and dreams into this D&D game is going to fix me, and this is going to be everything I want, and running into a DM and maybe a group this is not very good at that kind of thing. Like, but some of it is like, it's expectations. You often don't do a lot of role playing in just like a pickup one shot. Some DMs really like that and can just do spur of the moment conversations, but a lot of people don't. They're kind of focused on the go kill the beast in the woods or whatever. So I don't think it was necessarily a lack of planning. I think that's just kind of a bad group. I think another DM running the similar go kill the beast in the woods, but who's more comfortable on their feet or has more ideas to just draw from, I think that could have been a good game. But clearly that just wasn't going to work out no matter what.
Yeah, I think like we were talking about this earlier with how people come to the table with like it doesn't matter if you run the same story over and over and over, because it's going to be a different experience every time. I think in large part, at least like for me and a lot of the D&D players I play with, like we're character-driven players. Like, I read books because I get attached to the characters, not necessarily because I fully am like invested in the plot. Like, there's a bit of it, but I'm like, I want to see what these guys do. I want to see what happens because of them. And in the same way with D&D, it's like if I roll up to a table, there's kind of a set expectation as a player of like, my character is going to do something. Like, even if it's just, I'm going to say some words and it's going to make someone else in the party mad and we start fighting. Like, it doesn't matter what it is. Like, I want to be able to influence something in the moment. And I think that is kind of where, like, I find D&D really shines. Like, even from the DM perspective of, like, I have nothing planned, but it doesn't matter because you're going to do something and it's going to go off the rails and we're all going to have fun with it. So it's like, that's kind of where I'm like, that feels like a big fault on whoever was running that. Of like that could have been a much more enjoyable experience, even if you had nothing planned. But it sounds like they just didn't give the players the opportunity to like play.
Tips to all DMs who haven't written a lot of stuff and want to fill the time. Don't interrupt your party. Let them talk amongst themselves. They'll fill in the time. They're having fun talking to themselves and bantering. Sometimes you just gotta shut up and just let them do what they're doing. Because if you have nothing planned, you're like, they'll waste 40 minutes, and this is great. Also, ask them. Like, the whole, like, beast in the woods. You could just simply go, all right, you want to trap it? You want to make friends with it? How? How are you going to trap it? What do you guys have on you? And then you let them figure it out for another hour, and then they'll go, I want to put a twig here and a rope line here, and I want to... All right, roll survival. See how you do it. Great. All right, you feel confident. We're moving on. And then how do you do it? And it's like everyone gets a chance to put a trap, and that's how you fill another hour. Ask questions. It makes all the difference.
I mean, you can over prep and then have the DM yell at you, because I still remember Mike yelling at me because I banished his Leviathan that he worked very hard for. Yeah. And he was like, the fuck?
I built a map, an open seas fight, and I had multiple little tokens that were like the appendages of this Leviathan. And I was like, this is great.
Beautiful map.
Good. And I rolled all the NPCs who were on the ship, and they had rolled theirs, and the Leviathan did it. And then here comes Amber, a cleric, going, vanished. I rolled really poorly. I'm like,
Because he wasn't from the plane, so he
and he was he was an elemental, and I was like, you hear the pop, and you hold the concentration, and it's gone. Moving on. That was an hour I didn't get to waste.
Yeah, it do be that way sometimes.
But
You gotta be ready to throw away everything you just played.
some days you just gotta do that. But thank you so much, everyone, for joining us here on Above Table. We'll always come up with new rants. I always have new rants to give. Bye, everyone.